Hi everyone, Holly from Safe for Kids here, and I'm absolutely delighted tonight. Well, it's tonight my time, but I'm going to introduce you to Yami. Sorry, I'm Yami Pence. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
She's in America, so it's morning her time. We're going to be talking about grooming and lots of other things. I came across Yami on Instagram and then again on TikTok, and I've been blown away with the information that she's sharing to help parents keep their children safe. So we're going to hear about her job as a police officer and now why she's so passionate about keeping kids safe. So welcome, Yami.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Holly.
So can you tell us a bit about, your background and how you got started in this?
Yes. So I am, well, I still say I am because it was so recent. I was a police officer and detective 7 total years here in Florida. And for the last years of that career, I was an internet crimes against children detective, where I investigated child sexual abuse in person and on the internet, but mostly child exploitation and child sexual abuse that originated on the internet or led to the internet. And I recently resigned by choice in June 2021 to take care of my children and start a new journey. And then I started this page here just in early March, right here in 2022. I just felt it impressed on my heart that I should really start helping parents in my local community and whoever wanted to follow along in other communities farther away. And it's really taken off. People are really looking at this and saying, wow, this is stuff that I didn't know or wanted to close my eyes and my ears and not really know, and keep in the back of my head, but really it needs to be at the forefront of our minds and hearts all the time. So I started this page and it really took off. And these are all ideas and things that I've had in my notes section of my phone, and topics that I've had just waiting to be put out there, but I just wasn't ready. And then I was. So it's really been a huge blessing and exciting for me to just share the things that happened in my career that sometimes, family and friends didn't want to hear me talk about. You could tell that they'd get uncomfortable when I would start to talk about it because it is uncomfortable. And especially if they weren't a parent or something, it was just a friend of mine that maybe wasn't a parent, they might get a little bit like, oh, right, I'm okay. Like, I'm good for hearing about that now, Yami. Like, I think we could move on to the next topic, but the passion was still there. So I'm so glad to find parents who are just desperate for this information, especially when they see their kids, even as, like you've said before, the young age of 6 or 4 or 5 or 7 that are on their iPads looking at things and seeing things that the parent didn't expect, and they're just so grateful for this information.
And being a young mum too, that must have, emphasized it even more because, you've had a career where you've seen all these terrible things happen to children. Then as a young mum, that mum lioness must have kicked in and, you just want to keep other children safe.
Yes.
So one of the things I love about what you're talking about, I'm wearing, for people on the podcast, I'm wearing my grooming t-shirt. Can you tell us about how children are groomed online in your experience in the job?
Sure. So children are just normally, depending on the age, looking to either play a game that is on the internet, because unfortunately these days, most of the games that are geared toward children are on the internet, on an app or website that is also connected to chat rooms. So children go to these games with the intention of playing games. And then when the pandemic hit, they're also going on there seeking to connect with other kids their age, maybe that they know, or just any kid that they believe to be their age. Same with teens, they are doing the same thing. They're either on games that are meant for older kids like Fortnite, or they're on apps like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and they're just looking for connection with the outside world, being stuck inside all the time, with the pandemic, and then also just being the age of devices. So these older and younger kids are on these games and apps. And guess what? There are predators, pedophiles also on these apps, just sitting and waiting and throwing hooks out and hooks out, trying to catch a kid and get them on their hook. And that's when the grooming starts, and your shirt says grooming equals friending up. So grooming is when an adult predator is, whether in person in real life or online, it's the same thing. They're building a trust relationship with the child, and they're trying to get the child to trust them, to love them or like them, and really engage with them in conversations that could be very innocent in the beginning, very much about what the child likes or dislikes, the child's struggles. It could start with a vulnerable child that just, is looking for maybe a boyfriend her age or a friend his age, and they could believe it is their age, and the grooming predator will pretend to be whatever that child is or needs. And they are trying to fulfill that need so that the child is more likely to keep their relationship a secret. And then they will introduce secrecy into the chat. Again, it could be very innocent in the beginning for a long time or for a short time, depending on how the predator wants to go about it. And pretty soon it could go from 0 to where they weren't even talking to 100, where there's extreme abuse going on, even though it's just online. It could go from one to the next in just a few days or a few weeks or a few months or years. I've seen abuse go on for years without the parents knowing, because again, there's a child in a room, safe, the windows are locked, the doors are locked, and they're seemingly okay, but they're really on this device, an iPad, a phone, video game, and they're actually being groomed and abused this entire time. So I have so many examples. I could start with, we could start with one like Roblox or Minecraft, which is a game aimed towards younger children. And so the child starts playing Roblox, gets a chat from another 10-year-old child. 10-year-old child is chatting with another male 10-year-old child. And eventually its chat starts going towards sexual talk, and the child's not understanding. This is their first experience with it. And the other child will message a photo of child sexual abuse material. Could be just a photo of a little boy's penis. And it's really child sexual abuse material that the other little boy, which is really a predator, an adult predator on the other side of the phone or tablet, sends that image just to normalize to the child victim that, hey, look, some kids take photos of their genitals. You should too. And that's that's an example of how in an instant a child is exposed to not only pornography or pornographic material, but actually child sexual abuse material that in their mind says, oh, this is something other kids do because this boy just sent me a picture of his, and this is a huge tactic that predators use that within a moment, could convince a child to do the same thing. And now the child has possibly sent it because they want to impress their friend, or they want to just remain friends if the predator pressures the child and says, well, I sent you mine and now I feel embarrassed because you didn't send me yours. And, kids at that age, they're not meant to handle such type of pressure, and their minds can't fully understand what's going on or the consequences of what's going on, especially if they've never been educated. So very quickly, the child sends their image over, and now the hook is set. And the predator has a photo that he can use against the child if the child ever stops cooperating with the predator. And this can lead to going off the app. A lot of predators, whether it's Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram, the predators like to transfer the children one of the grooming red flags for online grooming is that the predator would ask and convince and push the child to give them a little more identifying information, maybe a cell phone number, or to get off and go to WhatsApp, Kick, or Discord, or an app where they can more privately message the child without monitoring. So they will switch off and go to a different app to continue the abuse, or to further the abuse if it hasn't started yet, in a more private app that's even more difficult for law enforcement to track once it's reported. It's a very common tactic, and that happened in almost all of my cases. And for those cases, privacy and them going to court, I'm being very general, in what I'm saying, just so everybody knows. But this is the method and the tactics that they use. And then by the time the parent figures this out, it's only the child hardly ever says anything. I don't really remember one where the child actually said something, except for one time, and it was an older child. But the younger children have never said anything, not in my experience. It's the parent find out in another way, like they find in the cloud of their shared devices, like in the iCloud, they would find the child's naked pornographic videos or pictures that they were coerced into creating by the suspect. And there's some terms here that I'd like to introduce.
Please.
What these grooming predators use, they use sextortion. And then in some other countries, they call it capping. And capping is more common. I think that term is more common in like Canada and the UK. I don't know if you've heard it in Australia.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so capping is when it's basically sextortion when they're screen recording like a live video. They convince the child to go on a live video or to send a video at all. And then they screen record it like, because sometimes the children, the apps like Snapchat, they are temporary videos that disappear, that the child thinks will disappear, but the predator can record the whole thing and then use it against them. So that's what capping is, whether it's a live video or not, they capture the video in some way and then use it against the child. And sextortion is the same thing. So they're going to use this either chat that the child is having, or a video or a photo that the child already sent that is risky or risque or more just inappropriate, where the child does not want anyone to know what they did. And then the predator will use that and say, if you don't send me even more specifically sexual graphic material of yourself, I will show this to the masses. I'm friends with all your friends at school on the internet. I will send it to your parents. I will send it to your teachers. They will use anything to coerce the child to continue on demand sending them photos and images. And the sad part is this creates an almost prison in the child's mind. Usually this person is very far away. Not always, but usually the predator is very far away, or they're at least not in a place where they can harm the child physically, unless they've exchanged that information, which that's a whole nother level. But if they haven't, they can convince the child, I know where you live. I've had that happen with my victims, and then they say, I have your photos, I have your images, I know where you live. And then they could even go threatening further and say, I'll hurt you and your family if you don't do this. And this is why, and the younger children are more easily convinced of this because they believe it more easily, where the older children can be like, but I never gave you my address, so I don't think really you know where I live. I think I'm going to go to my parents now. The younger children are more like, they know where I live, so then they really won't say anything. And then the parent finds later those videos and are like, what is this? Where did you learn this? And the reactions can cause either, depending on how the parent reacts, they can cause the child to shut down even more, or the child to say more. And most of the time the child shuts down because the parent, in a way, shuts down in panic mode that their child is doing such a thing, and they want to blame somebody. Sometimes they blame the child and they say, what were you watching? What were you doing and searching that you're acting this stuff out? But they don't realize that they didn't search anything out on their own, that this predator introduced them some type of pornography or child sexual abuse material and made them do this, like a puppet or a little mind control device, which is so sad to think. But yeah, it's incredibly heartbreaking, the ways that predators do this. And there's 7 steps of grooming that I teach. Some people teach 5, some people teach 7, but in my experience, I created kind of my own list, and I wrote them down here. But basically, they're giving a child special attention. This can happen online and offline, and then they really prefer your child over others, and then they give gifts. So in one of the cases regarding Fortnite that I recently shared on my page, the suspect gave the child a cell phone so that they could more secretly, I mean, these suspects will do anything. So if the child's willing, they will go out of their way and provide a child a cell phone so that they can further FaceTime chat all night long without you even knowing. You could be a parent that's totally involved and monitors everything and make sure there's no phone in the room at night, and the child has a phone the entire time because some predator somewhere mailed it to them from some other area. And then, or a person in their real life did the same thing. These are very important things to talk to your children about, any gift receiving. There's repeated touching, hugging, kissing. This isn't a real life grooming tactic. There's a sympathetic listener. This could happen online or offline. And it's just they go after the vulnerable child and they want to listen to the child's problems, empathize with the child's problems, and try to understand the child more than their parent does, and then convince the child that, oh, I like you, love you, understand you more than your parents get you, and to get to get between the parent and the child is imperative for these predators because they want to keep the secret. And that's part of the sympathetic listener, is to convince the child to start keeping secrets. Number 5 is to get the child alone, physically or emotionally and mentally, to get the child just isolated from communicating with the people that they need to be communicating with. And then in a real life, red flag is to offer to help babysit, offer to help finances, take the child places. They could do this online, but this that's usually actually a goal for these predators, is to eventually get to meet the child. And then number 7 is those private messages on the internet. This can happen offline first, and their goal is to get them chatting privately so that they can further groom them. And that happens online as well. They start on Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Instagram, TikTok, and then they say, hey, look at this messaging app. It's great. Let's go off of there. It's a little less busy over there. We can talk more. So, yeah, that was a lot that I just gave, but I hope it helps,
Gold.
paint the picture. I hope it helps. I hope all the masses hear this, that we're not asking you. So I encourage constant and regular monitoring of our kids and their devices and their screen time, constant education and talking about things with your children in the car, and keeping it light but keeping it normal and regular. No taboo topics, because honestly, the more shameful and taboo you get about it, the less likely your child's going to be to tell you if something happens. And it's just, the more time they have on screens, the more likelihood that it could happen. And it's not that we don't trust our kids at all. It's that we don't trust the millions of predators on these devices waiting for our kids. And sometimes, the safeguards that we put on these devices, they don't work. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. So we do have to physically regularly monitor these devices. This supervise the usage. No headsets, no headphones. Keep it loud. No one doing it at night behind closed doors. And it's not that we're invading their privacy or their personal life. A lot of people I've seen even almost attack me about not giving your kids privacy on devices. Is when we were growing up, we could write in a little journal and write all our feelings down in our diaries, but this isn't the same. Our diary is a piece of paper. Nobody's coming through our diary to talk to us or attack us or victimize us. Nobody, as long as our windows are locked and our doors are locked, is coming through physically to abuse us. But on these devices, there is no 100% safeguard that you could have. So there is no 100% privacy that you should be given, because children are not mentally equipped to handle an entire worldwide computer with tons of predators waiting on the other side of it. They're not mentally equipped to handle this. They're just not. It's just not the way we were built. It's not the way God created us. We are here and we're children. I think even our minds up until our early 20s aren't fully developed.
You're right.
So
Yeah.
we expect tiny children to get it right 100% of the time. And if there's predators out there trying over and over and over, like, we can't expect our children to be perfect in this battle. They shouldn't be at war by themselves. We should be their defenders and protectors. So we should be standing in between them and these predators, so that, like I said, constant monitoring, regular but random monitoring. It's not as invasive as you think, because if before you give this iPad, tablet, and phone to the child, you say, hey, I can let you use this for these purposes and these limitations because you want to play or whatever you want to do on it. Okay, but here's the limitations I'm setting. Here are the rules. Maybe create a contract that they can understand, even if it's only 3 bullet points long, and they can sign it with like a high five, like paint their hand and paint a little high five on it. Just something that they understand that there are rules in place. And sometimes that physical little paper, I've been criticized for this, a physical little contract. So, what can a child learn about a contract? Well, if they can't understand rules, then maybe they shouldn't have the device yet. But this rules, and then letting them know that part of the rules, part of the contract, or that, if you're going to get this, I will be checking it. And then if you don't want me to check it, then we won't use it. And that's it. You know what I mean? And some parents just don't get that. And, to each their own, and everybody wants to take their own risks, and that's your choice. But I highly recommend the monitoring to prevent everything that I just said.
No, that's phenomenal. I've actually, and I'll put it in the show notes, I've actually on my website got a 2-page with similar tips like that, and also a physical contract. The kids have to tick every box, and then both the parent and the child sign it at the bottom. So I'll put that in the show notes. But you're so right. When I'm working with children in schools, 2/3 of 8-year-olds admit to me they go online when their parents are asleep. And, 2/3 of 5 and 6-year-olds tell me they go on TikTok. And when I do a parent workshop that evening, I say, you do know that, the 5 and 6-year-olds are on TikTok, and the parents go, oh, it's okay. It's just a dancing app. Or
no,
I know, right?
That's just a stab to my heart. No.
So, there's everything that's come out of your mouth has been absolute gold, because when like I talk a lot about pornography, and when I talk about pornography, people go back to their childhood and think about the Playboy magazine under the big brother's bed or in dad's cupboard.
Right.
Parents, I don't have children of my own, and you're much younger than me and you're a young mum, but I'm not going to lie to you, I wouldn't want to be a parent trying to bring up children in this technology age, because most of us didn't grow up with it. So, it's made parenting so much harder, because
Yes.
they don't come with a handbook, children anyway. So I really encourage parents to listen to everything that you've said and to research these apps. And, when I do a face-to-face workshops here in Australia, I always send parents to Common Sense Media. Bark are really good. And, I always refer people to different agencies so that they can go and research. Here in Australia, we have the Safety Commission. That's a government department. But to be honest, Common Sense Media is my favorite, because the second a new app's released, they research it and they give parents a very balanced view. They don't say get your kids off everything. These are the pros and these are the cons, but parents need to research all of this stuff, and, not just because they go on the app store and it says, 8+ or 13+ or whatever. That's not to protect children. That's to protect the app people. for data for children. So
They just want money. Unfortunately, big tech wants money and views and internet traffic to head to their website. They don't really care about anything. And if they did, they would create a children's app that's safe, that doesn't have chat rooms, that doesn't have awful things and awful ways for predators to get them. And I haven't found one yet.
No.
So
we've talked about younger children, but of course it's also a big problem with our teenagers. So have you got any sort of case studies, that general ones that you can share
yes,
with the parents? Because there'll be lots of different age parents I've got different age kids that are listening. And teenagers, we've just had a show on last night, ironically, here in Australia, about catfishing. And one of the women's stories was she was 15 and thought she was in a relationship with a 17-year-old, and it went on for 12 years.
Wow.
I know. She ended up marrying somebody else, but still stayed in this supposed friendship. And then she finally found out it was a 62-year-old man. Who would have thought?
Oh.
So, it's our young children are getting caught, but also our teens are getting caught. So what can you share about teenagers?
Yes. So Snapchat was a big one while I was working. Anytime I saw Snapchat, it was constant predators fishing for the teens. And like you said, especially teenagers, but even the younger ones. As soon as they get on these apps, there's just nudity, and then it goes to pornography, and especially in the private messaging back and forth, but even in the regular feed, these apps promote just a normalization of nudity, pornography, and sexuality. And so these kids are being normalized to it. Everyone in school is talking about it, right? So even if you are a strict parent, like I will be, and don't give your child a smartphone early on, somebody else, if your child goes to school, if your child hangs out with someone not near you, away at their house, down the street, they may look at a phone of their friend that has no internet monitoring and see pornography. And so, or worse, So one of the biggest cases that I had that went federal was a Snapchat-based case, and a suspect was not that much older, was victimizing girls from 12 to 13 up to 16. And he was 19 years old. And he started this by preying on actually a vulnerable young girl. This is a girl who didn't have her parents. Her grandma was her guardian. Her grandma, imagine if we don't know too much about what the kids are doing these days, imagine grandma guardian, who knows even less. And she just didn't know how to control this girl by the time she got to her. And she was using the phone and never had any limitations, was on Snapchat, and then saw girls, which is very common right now, whether it's Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram. OnlyFans is a new website, new-ish in the last few years, and it's supposed to be meant for adults, but a lot of teenagers are getting on there, just lying about their age, getting on there and making money by posting pornography. And so this girl saw an advertisement and said by a guy that said, hey, if you send me sexy photos, I'll pay you this much money. And then she started chatting with this guy, and they became friendly. And she's 16, has no money, and again, is in a rough situation where grandma had to take custody and help her. And unfortunately, she fell into this trap. You got to remember, like, some kids from different backgrounds, whether they come from a lot of money or not, for some reason want to have their own money, or they want to feel in control of their own life. So they may fall for something like this. And there are two avenues. This child was tricked by the hope of being able to make some money. And she, in the first videos that she made for this predator, was very light, like softcore pornography, like just sexy underwear, some shots in her bra, things like that, things that were not that far off the deep end, things that were normalized, because a lot of people may think, never my kid, like you said earlier, never my kid would do that. They know better. They know that's wrong. But sometimes, like I said, our kids are not able to really see the consequences in their actions. And because this is so easy to take a photo, and they're being pressured into doing, like, hey, if you really want this money, I got another girl offering to do it. So I'm gonna give you $300 in 2 minutes if you send me a photo of yourself in your bra and a little bit of your face, And the girl may be like, okay, and or maybe even no face, just me and my bra. Okay, so nobody's gonna know. I could really use $300. I really want to buy something for someone special or for myself, whatever it is. And that's how this girl got roped in. The beginning photos were not that bad. It was, very vanilla for what's out there considered, And then what happened was he did the capping, the sextortion. He did some stuff on live video, and then basically used all of that against her to force her into sending more. And he made her into, like, he called her, you're now my sex slave. Like, he reintroduced himself and, okay, I'm not sending you any money. You're now my sex slave. So go ahead and go to the bathroom right now and do this and do this and do this and do it like this and do this to yourself with this object. And I know that's very uncomfortable to hear, but he was really like directing her to do, and here that's called, in the States, it's called soliciting child sexual abuse material or child pornography. It's production of child sexual abuse material or child pornography. Here in Florida, that's the statutes. So it's that's how it went. And eventually, thankfully, this girl was 16 years old. This one girl that I'm talking about, she came into the police department and reported it herself with her grandmother, who's very brave, very, very rare for someone to just basically tell on herself and also tell on this bad guy, because she knew that she had done something that, at least in the beginning, was not a great choice. But she was like, I'm done being this guy's slave. I'm done doing this. Because he went on more. Eventually he got violent about it. And, so eventually she was like, okay, I'm done doing this. I'm going to go tell. And, even she was holding back with me in my interview, but eventually I gained a trusting relationship with her for her to be totally truthful, because again, they're this whole time being groomed and convinced that they're going to get in trouble. So come to find out, I team up with other jurisdictions. I team up with this takes a lot of effort, and then this case ends up going federal, but we did so much more research onto this 19-year-old suspect. And he ended up having, once we did the search warrant on his home, he ended up having tons and tons of really horrific, violent child pornography on his devices. Even though he was only 19 and he was just 18 or 17, a couple of years back, he's just a child. No, his addictions and his wants were very violent and very aggressive toward younger children and even toddlers and babies. And his youngest real victims, I call them real victims, he was fishing constantly. Like I said very earlier in the podcast, he was sending out hooks on Snapchat, on Instagram. He was constantly messaging little kids, 10, 12, 13 years old, trying to get them on this hook. But his main victim was that 16-year-old girl, but he had many others who he had on the same hook. And we identified them. We flew people out to interview them. This all created just this giant federal case. And it was an example being made out of him, because this is constant. And I don't care what age you are, you're still victimizing a little child. And so that's the older teen example. And he, so they're one of these examples. So one of these children in this case, there was my 16-year-old victim that I met. There was 2 or 3 others that were essential part of the case that I didn't get to meet, but my coworkers got to meet. And those, one of them, he was screen recording everything. So thank you, Lord, that he was screen recording things. It was for his own benefit, but then it helped us in court, because he would screen record step-by-step use. He would go from typing on Snapchat, recording, and then swiping over and then recording their live video chats that we never would have been able to access, but he recorded them. And then I could watch all these videos from his devices and watch him typing to the girl that he's live video chatting, who had her baby sister next to her. And he was asking this young girl to abuse her baby sister that she was sitting next to and chatting with. Like, parents, I hope this makes you jump out of your skin and jump into the next room in your house and jump outside and just want to scream. Because that's what's happening, is that even a 19-year-old boy has, or not boy, 19-year-old man who has been addicted probably to child sexual abuse material, or also known as child pornography, for so long that it has created him into this predator at the age of 19, that he is asking a little girl to abuse her baby sister. And thank God that she did not. You know, and maybe if he had been in the point of his grooming, that where he had already had her on the hook, whereas I will hurt you and your sister if you don't do this. You know, there have been that. And he did that to the other victim too. He asked the other victim, bring your, hey, who's that little girl, while they were live recording? Who's that little girl? Bring her in there. And then the girl was like, no, I'm not doing that to my sister. Like, you know, so thankfully but there are kids who are convinced that, well, if I don't do this to my sister, he's going to kill us all. So that, again, should make your soul jump out of your skin and just want to run across and just scream. So I get it. And I'm sorry for anyone listening that has just felt this stab in the heart. It should hurt. It should hurt you a lot. And it should make you want to fight for these kids. So,
and how, as a police officer, did you handle that? I mean, I'll put a trigger warning, of course, on the at the beginning of everything, of course, but you know, and especially now as a young mum, I can see why you got out of policing, because you know, having to deal with that and you know, scroll through that. I mean, I'm very aware of vicarious trauma just in my work and the stories that I hear, but actually I got sent, so 2 years ago, I got sent on Instagram, somebody tagged me into child exploitation material. I saw one picture. I still have flashbacks. Somebody came across a heinous thing on Instagram, didn't know how to deal with it, so they've put at Safe for Kids, which is me, at FBI, at Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which of course is where it will end up. And so I open up this video, burst into tears, but I still had enough wherewithal to take a screenshot of his face, but not what he was doing to the children, of his Instagram page. I go out to take a screenshot of who tagged me, but it had disappeared. I go online and make a report to our federal police here in Australia. I go up into our house and I explain to my husband exactly what I saw, and I'm crying, and I'm a basket case basically. And he's gone, oh yeah. What do you mean? Oh yeah, I'm crying, and all you're giving me is oh yeah. And so that was April 2020. So I saw one image and I still get flashbacks. So how did you protect yourself having to deal with this stuff?
Well, a few things. And things have changed as I've progressed in my life, but that is called unwanted recall. It's post-traumatic stress disorder related. Just because it didn't happen to you, our brains we were not created to see that. And basically, like I said before, this is child sexual abuse material. So again, trigger warning, this is rape on camera, on video, they even made GIFs out of child sexual abuse material. And part of my job was to look through the devices of offenders after getting the appropriate legal process, and to see this child sexual abuse material and to categorize it and to count how many child sexual abuse material videos and images that they had, to charge them with it. And then some of them they created themselves or got children to create, and some of them they got from trading it with other pedophiles on the internet. And it like makes my legs like weak just thinking about it. Yes, it is very traumatic. And to see hundreds of thousands of these images, it's like one case alone had 400,000 images for me to look through. And it could be anywhere between 100 to 200,000, or even if it's only 400 of all those images, even if it's only 400, those are images, different videos of different children. That's 400 children. I've seen thousands in cases of all different children. Sometimes in one video, it's a compilation. And to see and know that that's a real soul, a real human being, a real baby being sexually abused, and but who? people that were in their care, trusted with their care. Yeah, that is one of the most difficult things I will ever deal with. And honestly, at first, I didn't handle it well, and I didn't have the right methods. But then I, had a lot of support in my coworkers that are still doing it. Don't know how they do it. Still, I knew that I had to put a stop to it after 3 years because, like I said, my caseload was that of 3 people at least, maybe more. And I knew that I was like, okay, I need to start making a transition here soon, and I was. And I actually left that police department, and now they have 2 people instead of 1 person because of all the loud noise that I made on my way out. And, I don't care what they thought about me, but I was like, this is not okay. You need, not just for the detective's sake, but the kids that they're possibly needing to save. You're doing a disservice to them. And thankfully they listened to me, and now they're doing a better job. But and not the detectives, but the management has given them the proper, better resources. But honestly, I will say that overall, not a lot of people want to be police anymore. And even less people want to do this job for the reason that you just said, because it's very traumatic, very uncomfortable. And so to be honest with you, Jesus helped me and healed me. He continues to heal me every day. That my faith, I leaned into it more than ever after this job, because you could really get into a dark place thinking, if there's this evil in the world, like, I don't even want to be here. Like you said, I'm a new parent. Why would I want to bring my child into this world? And leaning heavily on your faith and knowing that there's greater purpose and there are good people out there, and there are things that we can do to help each other. And then also therapy is amazing, talking to someone who can help you through this. So I know a lot of my coworkers do take part in that, because it's just necessary, because you have to talk about this, because, you, Holly, are willing to listen to my story. Some people shut this podcast off a while ago, or at least wanted to, because that was too traumatic for them to hear, much less see, or hear in even more graphic detail, because sometimes we're able to talk to a therapist that can listen to it. And I know that a lot of my coworkers have been able to benefit from EMDR therapy, which is one that's very, very good to help get your mind disconnected from those traumatic flashbacks, and to help train your mind to not go to that place, or what to do when those thoughts come in, how to deal with that at the moment. It's like a mind training situation. But honestly, my faith was number one. Nothing changed it more than that when I learned to lean heavily onto that, and that's just what worked for me. And I tried a lot of different things. And as you could see, I can talk a good bit. So I had a lot of loving friends and family who did want to listen to me. Some didn't, and I could read that room really quick, and I would just stop talking about it and never bring it up with that person again. But some were very willing to hear me and support me, and will probably watch this later in support. So yeah, that's how I dealt with it. I do recommend anyone, especially children, but anyone who is exposed to it, or if their child goes through something like that and they have to see something, if they see it on Instagram or tagged in it, if it goes viral, a lot of these things go viral just for the sake of people trying to get help to that child. People say, oh my gosh, this is the most horrible thing ever. And before they know it, they tag people like you, or they share some, so we got to catch this guy. Do you know who this guy is? And they're unknowingly or mistakenly sharing and perpetuating child exploitation material. So, if you see it, anybody watching this podcast, if you see it, you can go to cybertipline.org if you're in the States. And then I know this extends internationally as well, and you can report it. I know Canada has their own cyber tip line. I'm sure Australia has their own type of a cyber tip line, and other countries as well. And then all the different police jurisdictions will eventually get that tip and handle it.
Yeah.
Those are the type of tips I got. So, yeah.
Yami, thank you so much for your time. I hope people get a lot out of this. You've shared so many gold moments. We've got to educate adults. The only way we can combat it takes a village. And I really wholeheartedly believe that. And if people could share this with, you know, it's not a comfortable conversation, but we
Mhm.
need to get the message out there, because as you said, there are millions of these people preying on children. But there's more of us. If more of us stood up to them, we could really make a difference. So thank you so much.
Yes, I totally agree. We got to do this together. We got to lock arms, virtually from a distance. And, it's heavy. It's hard to listen to. It may ruin your day sometimes seeing these stories or hearing about this, but just remember that you learning and you being willing to learn and being willing to listen at least one time per month, even, and learning something new about this and sharing it with at least one other person, you could directly be, even if you're not near Holly, sharing this. But if you just share this video, or if you just share one little snippet from my Instagram page or TikTok, or something that teaches a parent something to be more aware of, that could be the game changer. That could change one child's life, which could change all of their families and children and generations. By preventing the abuse of one child, you can change an entire generation. That gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It's so worth it to do this and this fight.
Thank you again. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.